It's Valentine's Day. Chocolates wrapped in cute DIY packages, sweet confessions of love. She has everything ready. Tomorrow she's finally going to confess to Hyunwoo after crushing on him for 2 years. But of course, just when she's made up her mind, the manager decides today's the perfect day for a team dinner. Of all days, he just has to pick today. She was going to give Hyunwoo the chocolates after work, but now she's stuck here drinking with everyone instead. The manager frowns at his soju, sniffs it, asks if someone put chocolate in it. She wishes someone had put something in hers too. She sighs. She's been waiting for this. She remembers the first time Hyunwoo said her name was cute. She thought about it every night for a week. She knew she had to confess eventually, but she kept putting it off. And now that she's finally ready, the manager just has to ruin it with his timing. She's already annoyed when he suddenly turns to her and asks if she's seeing anyone. She says no. He asks how old she is. Isn't she in her late 20s? She says she's 27. He stares like she just told him she's secretly 80. What, seriously? He starts going on about how women are in high demand until 24, but after 25 things change, and once they hit 30, they're out of options. She already knows where this is going. The others start whispering about how women should settle down early, have kids before 30, heaven forbid they wait too long. She sighs, drinks her soju. If she says anything, he's just going to go on for another hour. She should be the bigger person. Let it go. Just let it go. She looks at Hyunwoo. He's laughing at something someone said. She hopes she still gets a chance to confess today. Hyunwoo interrupts the manager by saying marriage doesn't have to be a priority for someone who's 27, and that, in fact, it's still quite young since most couples wait until after 30. And Dajung, watching him, thinks he's her hero. The manager grumbles about young people these days, insisting that if no one marries or has kids, what will become of the country's future? And he turns to Dohoon for his opinion, to which Dohoon replies that marriage and childbirth are personal choices and no one, not even the government, should force anything on an individual. The manager then reminds him of his previous proposition, assuring him there's no pressure, just one meal with her is all he's asking for, while Sunung praises her by noting she has his wife's fair skin, pretty face, and is also a very good chef, prompting one employee to mutter that the conversation is getting a bit uncomfortable and another to agree, imagining how hard it must be for him. Meanwhile, Mr. Ji Dohoon stands out as the poster child of perfection. Graduated from a famous Australian university, scouted by a conglomerate, promoted at lightning speed, with a face like an actor, a body like a supermodel, and a work ethic that seems like a real-life cheat code. And although all the girls go crazy for him, Dajung can't help but wonder if his cool, detached air is because he's living in another world, even when someone is right next to him. Dohoon is quiet, and the manager asks if he's seeing someone. Dohoon says he's not, but he can't help sneaking glances at Dajung. She notices him staring and wonders why. The manager teases Dohoon, saying he knows he's busy, but can make time for his daughter, who's really nice. Dajung sees Hyunwoo leaving and panics, thinking she might not get another chance to talk to him. She rushes outside, braving the cold, and spots a figure in the distance. She hurries over, telling the person to wait, but not come any closer. Dajung takes a deep breath, confessing that she's thought a lot about telling him something. She admits she's always tried to be a better person and asks if he'll go out with her. She's mortified, wishing she'd mustered up more courage before approaching him. The person responds, saying it's unexpected, but Dajung's heart sinks as she realizes the voice isn't Hyunwoo's. Instead, it's Mr. Ji, who's standing in front of her, smiling. He agrees to go out with her and suggests making their relationship official. Dajung's shocked, unsure what just happened. She's stunned by Mr. Ji's sudden interest and can't help but wonder what he's thinking. Is this really happening? Dajung is stunned, wondering if Mr. Ji really just agreed to go out with her. She asks herself if she's hearing things or if the alcohol is playing tricks on her. She thinks maybe she misheard or maybe Mr. Ji didn't really mean it. Mr. Ji confirms, saying she's the one who asked him out, and Dajung's inner voices start chiming in. One personality reminds her that she originally wanted to confess to Hyunwoo, Another asks if Mr. G says yes to anyone who asks him out. A third personality mentions a terrifying rumor about Mr. G's past rejection of a coworker, Ji-won from sales. Dajung tries to call Mr. G, intending to tell him that her confession was a mistake. She thinks to herself that she needs to tell him the truth, that she didn't mean to confess to him. However, before she can explain, Mr. G receives a call and steps away to answer it. Dajung wonders if the caller might be someone from work, and if Mr. G is going to answer the call in front of her. As Mr. G walks out, Dajung thinks to herself that this is getting more and more complicated. Hyunwoo appears, congratulating Dajung and Mr. G on their apparent relationship. He jokes that it's great to see another office couple, and they look perfect together. Dajung is at the office, trying to calm her nerves as she prepares to talk to Mr. G. She thinks to herself that she needs to set things straight before she's in too deep. She's about to knock on Mr. G's door when he opens it and asks what she's doing there. Dajung says hello, and Mr. G invites her in, saying he has something to discuss with her. She wonders what that could be. As she enters the office, Dajung can't help but notice how perfect Mr. G looks, like he just stepped out of a magazine. She thinks to herself that someone like that agreeing to go out with her is just unbelievable. Her mind flashes back to Hyunwoo asking if she's going home early, and she recalls how obsessed she was with him. But now, she's starting to realize that Mr. G is in a league of his own. Mr. G asks Dajung about her research on Hong Kong's hospitality industry, and she replies that she's still working on it. He asks when she expects the report to be ready, and she says next week, Monday. Mr. G suggests using last year's proposal for Shanghai's Conlab Resort as a reference. Dajung thinks to herself that she should look for that proposal, but wonders if that's all Mr. G wanted to discuss. Then Mr. G asks if she has plans for tonight, and Dajung says she's free. Mr. G smiles, saying they should have dinner together. Dajung's mind is racing, trying to process what's happening. She thinks to herself that this is moving too fast, but at the same time, she's curious about where things might go with Mr. G. Dajung asks Mr. G if it's just going to be the two of them at dinner, and he replies that there's no need to bring anyone else. She's taken aback, wondering how they're suddenly going on a date when they've barely even had small talk before. Mr. G mentions that it's their first date, and Dajung's mind is racing. She tries to explain that she needs to tell him something about the previous night. Asks him to pretend that her confession never happened. Her subconscious is screaming at her to just spit it out already. She confesses that she was drunk and mistook him for someone else in the dark park, launches into a bizarre explanation about night blindness and vitamin A deficiency, rambling on about the importance of eating vegetables and fruits. Dajung's inner monologue is a mess, wondering what she's supposed to say next. Mr. G interrupts her, asking what if he doesn't want to pretend that the confession never happened. Dajung's heart sinks as she realizes she's not sure what to say to that. She thinks to herself that she's made a mess of things, and now she's not sure how to fix it. Mr. G's expression is unreadable, and Dajung can't help but wonder what he's thinking. Is he angry with her, or just confused? Dajung asks Mr. G what he means, and he confirms that he wants to go out with her, without even a hint of hesitation. She's taken aback, wondering what's going through his mind. She presses him for the truth, asking what he was thinking when he accepted her confession. Mr. G explains that the manager has been trying to set him up with his daughter, and he's been declining, but the manager won't take no for an answer. Dajung thinks to herself that it's not surprising, given that Mr. G is the perfect catch. He's always been kind and considerate, and now she's starting to realize that he's also been dealing with the pressure of being a desirable bachelor. He continues, saying that he couldn't tell the manager he's seeing someone when he's not, and that's when Dajung confessed to him. She realizes that Mr. G accepted her confession because he needed someone to shield him from the advances of the manager's daughter and others. She thinks to herself that it didn't matter to him who confessed, as long as it was someone. Dajung tells Mr. G that she understands what he's going through, but she can't be in a relationship under such circumstances. She thinks to herself that it's not fair to her, and that she deserves better than to be used as a shield. Just as she's about to suggest pretending it never happened again, Mr. G cuts her off, asking if it's because of Mr. Seo. Dajung's heart skips a beat as she wonders how he knew and what he's thinking. Dajung's eyes widen as Mr. G reveals he knows she mistook him for someone else, specifically Mr. Seo Hyunwoo. She thinks to herself that she's been caught red-handed. Mr. G explains that it wasn't hard to figure out given their team's demographics and Hyunwoo's similar physique and clothing. He rises from his seat, his eyes locked on Dajung's, and asks if she still feels the same way about Hyunwoo. Dajung's mind flashes back to Hyunwoo's words from the previous night, and she thinks to herself that if he had any feelings for her, he wouldn't have been so cheerful and supportive of her supposed relationship with Mr. G. Just then, Dohoon drops a bombshell, announcing that he'll be leaving for Australia in 8 months due to a job offer. Dajung's surprised, and Dohoon explains that it's a great opportunity he couldn't pass up. He then turns to Dajung and asks if she'd consider him as a potential partner, given the low chances of Hyunwoo accepting her confession. He offers her a deal, promising to give her anything she wants in return for her consideration. Dajung's taken aback, but she quickly composes herself and exits the room, thinking to herself that she's successfully taken back her confession. As she walks out, she's greeted by her coworkers, and she can't help but feel a sense of relief wash over her. The conversation went smoother than she expected, and she's grateful to have dodged a potentially awkward situation. Dajung recalls Dohoon's words of wisdom, suggesting they pretend nothing happened, just like she wanted. She thinks to herself that she's grateful the awkwardness is behind her, and Mr. G doesn't seem like the type to hold grudges. With that drama settled, Dajung's mind shifts back to Hyunwoo, the one she's really interested in. She asks a colleague if she knows where Hyunwoo is, and learns he's supposedly in the supply room. Dajung thinks to herself that she needs to be honest with Hyunwoo about what happened the night before. Maybe, just maybe, he'll surprise her and reveal he has feelings for her too. She takes a deep breath, preparing herself for the conversation, and heads to the supply room. As she approaches, she calls out, asking if that's Hyunwoo, and her heart sinks as she sees him locking lips with another woman. Dajung's eyes widen as she realizes the woman kissing Hyunwoo is none other than Seah, her university acquaintance and coworker. She asks herself why Seah is with Hyunwoo, feeling a pang of betrayal. Dajung recalls a past conversation with Seah, where she asked if Dajung was in love with Hyunwoo. Seah had reassured her that Hyunwoo would definitely like her, even offering to support Dajung in her pursuit of him. Dajung thinks to herself that Seah's words were nothing but a lie, and now she's stabbing her in the back. Seah catches Dajung's eye and quickly excuses herself, leaving Hyunwoo wondering who Dajung was looking at. Dajung tries to brush it off, telling Hyunwoo not to be distracted. Just then, their boss approaches, reminding Dajung that it's meeting time and she needs to arrange the files. Dohoon announces that everyone has arrived and they should start the meeting. As the meeting begins, Dajung can't help but steal glances at Hyunwoo and Seah, her mind racing with thoughts of betrayal and heartache. Our female lead's mind starts to wander, wondering how long Hyunwoo and Seah have been together, but she quickly snaps back to reality, remembering her own excitement about confessing to Hyunwoo. She thinks to herself that it's not like she's been pining for him for years or anything, but still, she can't help but feel a little hurt. Dohoon interrupts her daydreaming, asking her to confirm the delivery date, and she replies that the goods will arrive on April 10th. However, Dohoon is not satisfied with the date and asks her to arrange for an earlier delivery. As she apologizes and promises to take care of it, she can't help but think that she's the only one who's been foolish, and that Hyunwoo seems rather cold towards her. She recalls their previous encounter, where he asked her out, but her mind is a jumble of emotions. She wonders if she misread the situation entirely. Dohoon calls the meeting back to order, and the female lead notices Seah staring at her, feeling like a thorn in her side. As the meeting comes to a close, the female lead receives a text asking her to give someone some time after the meeting. Seah approaches her, apologizing for her actions, explaining that she initially wanted the female lead and Hyunwoo to be together, but things took a complicated turn when Hyunwoo confessed to her. Despite rejecting him, Seah found herself drawn to Hyunwoo, and now she's torn between her feelings and her loyalty to the female lead. The female lead listens, trying to process her emotions, feeling a mix of surprise, hurt, and confusion. Dajung asks Seah since when she and Hyunwoo have been together, and Seah reveals it's been since last winter. Dajung thinks to herself that she's been oblivious to their relationship for an entire year, and on top of that, she confided in Seah about her own feelings for Hyunwoo. Seah apologizes profusely, but Dajung is hurt, feeling that Seah should have been honest with her from the start. She tells Seah that if they decide to date, she should have at least informed her instead of keeping her in the dark. Dajung is torn between her loyalty to Seah and her own feelings of betrayal. Seah tries to explain herself, but Dajung isn't having it, saying that her excuses are just that, excuses. She tells Seah that she doesn't want to hear any more and that she's lost the confidence to face her like before. The tension between them is palpable as Seah tries to appeal to their past friendship, but Dajung is resolute, saying she doesn't want to talk to Seah outside of work anymore. Seah calls Dajung sister, but Dajung corrects her, saying she's not her sister anymore. Dajung thinks to herself that she's had enough drama for one day and considers playing hooky, but then remembers she turned down Dohoon's offer and doesn't want to rock the boat. She starts sending a text to Dohoon, but then remembers that she rejected him. She thinks to herself that it's better to lay low for a while. She sees Seah crying and feels a pang of guilt, but tells herself to forget about Seah and focus on her own problems. She asks herself what she should have done in that situation. Should she have played it cool and congratulated Seah instead? After all, they're colleagues. Maybe it would have been better not to make a scene, but she just couldn't do it. She really cares for Seah with all her heart, just as much as she liked Hyunwoo. That's what she thought, but now she's not so sure. As she walks away, she overhears someone criticizing her for being cold-hearted towards Seah. Dajung wonders what's going on now, and the lady continues to badmouth Dajung, saying she's being unfair to Seah. The lady asks Seah how Dajung could turn down her sincere apology, and Seah tries to defend Dajung, saying she understands the pain she's going through. The lady doesn't seem to care, saying that just because Dajung liked Hyunwoo first, it doesn't mean Seah can't like him now. The female lead thinks to herself that her crush on Hyunwoo was a deeply personal secret, shared only with Seah, and it's painful to see it become casual gossip. She recalls how Seah would often tease her about her feelings, but now it feels like a betrayal. Dajung walks into the room, asking Seah what she's doing, and Seah tries to downplay the conversation. However, the female lead cuts her off, her emotions boiling over as she asks if Seah enjoys toying with her feelings. Seah tries to defend herself, but the female lead is having none of it, pointing out that Seah tricked her for 2 years and is now broadcasting her secret to everyone. Miss Yoon intervenes, saying she didn't mean to stir up trouble, but the female lead is beyond consolation. She explains that Seah seemed upset, so she encouraged her to share what was going on, and from what she hears, Seah's been going through a lot too. Ms. Yoon reveals that Seah was even thinking of breaking up with Hyunwoo out of guilt, and she gets why the female lead is upset, but wonders if a man is really worth all the drama. Dajung tries to explain, but Seah interrupts, offering to break up with Hyunwoo if that's what the female lead really wants. Seah says she doesn't want to lose the female lead over a petty romance. Dajung sees Dohoon approaching and thinks to herself that it's time to play a new game. The female lead asks Seah why she should break up with Hyunwoo, saying she doesn't even care about him anymore. She tells Seah to just keep her out of her messy love life, saying she's someone too. Seah asks the female lead if she's really over Hyunwoo, pointing out that she told her she still had feelings for him. Seah walks closer, her voice low and urgent, saying she knows the female lead is angry, but she shouldn't overcompensate by lying about her feelings. The female lead is skeptical of Seah's words, and Seah can't blame her. Meanwhile, Dohoon declines a coffee offer from a colleague. Dajung boasts that the man she's seeing now is way better than Seo Hyunwoo, leaving Seah wondering who this mystery man could be. The female lead is confident that she'll prove her point to Seah. Dajung approaches Dohoon and reveals that she has time for dinner tonight. A sudden change of heart that raises Dohoon's eyebrows. He asks what made her change her mind, and she explains that she canceled her plans for a date with him. Dohoon is thrilled, and they make plans to meet up after work. Dajung is relieved that her plan worked, and Dohoon suggests that everyone get back to their desks. Seah is stunned, wondering if Dajung and Dohoon are really going on a date. She can't believe that Dajung would be seeing Mr. Ji, a man she thought was off limits. As the workday comes to a close, Dohoon emerges from his office, praising everyone for their hard work. Thank him, and Dohoon walks up to Dajung saying it's time for their date, asking if she still has a lot to do. She says, no, let her take the envelope, and returns it to the reference room. He says he'll do it. She says she can do it. He says, I must be starving since she didn't have anything for lunch. She asks herself how he knows that she didn't eat lunch. She stands up and tells everyone to have a good evening. Everyone is surprised that they're for real. One of them asks if he saw him worrying about her not having lunch. Was that kind and caring man the same Mr. Ji that she knows? One of them asks how Dajung ended up with Prince Charming. Another replies that she's got game. Seah says she doesn't believe it. How did she get Mr. Ji of all people? Dohoon leads the way. And the female lead can't help but notice the luxurious surroundings, thinking to herself that she could never afford such opulence on her salary. She compliments Dohoon's car, and he explains that it's a company perk, along with housing. The female lead is impressed, realizing that Dohoon's contributions to the company must be substantial. She can't help but think that he's the epitome of perfection. A young team leader at a major conglomerate with a house and a car. As he opens the car door for her, she asks if they're really going to do this, and he assures her they are, saying, of course, did she think he was joking? She thinks to herself that even though they're faking it, they still need to make it look like they're for real. There's so much to discuss with him. Maybe they could talk about how they're going to go about this. She asks herself, what's that cologne? It smells nice. He asks her what she likes. She asks what? He says he means for dinner. She says she's not too picky. He asks if she likes sushi. She says yes, she can't live without it. She thinks to herself that she sounded a bit too desperate. He says there's a place called Songhak nearby and says they should go there. She asks what? She thinks to herself that she knows the place. It's a super famous high-end Japanese restaurant. No, it would hurt to have to pay for it, but she wouldn't feel right having him pay either. She's torn between not wanting to pay for it herself and not feeling right about letting Dohoon foot the bill. She suggests they skip sushi for now and go to a restaurant she frequents instead, a cozy little place famous in her neighborhood. Dohoon agrees, asking her to show him the way. As they stand in front of the restaurant, he wonders what makes this place so famous. She invites him in, and he asks if she's a regular there. She confirms, sharing that she used to come here with her family often, raving about the insanely good food and extensive menu. He teases about the menu being too big, but she promises he won't be disappointed. As she gets up to order, she tells him to take his time. Dohoon is surprised by the unusual menu options, wondering if gizzards and chicken feet are even edible. She stands up to get them some water, telling him to take his time. He says okay. Dajung greets Aunt Sunja, who asks if she came with her sisters. Dajung explains she's with someone else today, and Aunt Sunja's eyes light up, asking if she means the handsome young man. Dajung clarifies that he's just her superior from work, but Aunt Sunja is disappointed, saying what a shame, he's so attractive. Aunt Sunja jokes that she thought her mother's dreams had finally come true. Later, Dajung says she'll make all the food she wants tonight, she just needs to focus on drinking. The female lead asks what. She says she knows how it goes. One moment they're colleagues, then after a few shots they could end up as husband and wife. The female lead calls her name and says it's not like that. Says nothing beats this. Dohoon asks if she's planning to drink all the soju they have. He holds her hand and tells her it's enough for today. She begs him to let her drink as much as she wants, just for today. He says okay, but she should drink slowly. She says okay. She drinks it slowly. He asks if that's what he meant. She starts laughing. He asks what's so funny. She says it's nothing, just the fact that he's scolding her right now. He says okay, but that's enough for her and warns her not to get drunk like that with other people. She says okay. She asks if he doesn't know why. He asks why what? She says why she suddenly changed her mind about all this. He says he figured something had happened to her, but what matters to him is the end result, not the reason behind it. She thinks to herself that she still doesn't know if he's been considerate or just logical, but at least she knows he's not the one telling people the truth about this. He reassures her that if talking about it makes her uncomfortable, she doesn't have to discuss it. She reveals that she was furious, feeling betrayed by her friends treating her like a fool behind her back. She wanted to prove to them that she's not someone to be taken lightly, capable of dating a decent man. She desires a relationship that's like something out of a movie, with him as the leading man. She reminds him that he also needed a girlfriend to quiet the rumors, and asks if his proposal from that morning is still valid. She suggests they become an official couple starting today. She breaks down in tears, apologizing and saying she doesn't know what's gotten into her. She hates people who cry when they're drunk, but she's been holding it in all day. Since seeing Hyunwoo and Seah together, she's wanted to cry but didn't want to seem pitiful. Her tears overflow, and she confesses that her feelings for Hyunwoo were genuine, and she really leaned on Seah for support. Dohoon comforts her, saying he doesn't judge people who cry when they're drunk, and she should let it all out. His gentle voice is like a soothing magic spell. She thanks him. He takes her home, asking if that's her house, and she says yes, her grandfather designed it. He admires the architecture, noting it's a lightweight wood frame house with a brick finish, looking cozy. She agrees, saying it is cozy, and shares that it looks large from the outside, but it's just right for her big family. He comments that her home sounds lively, and she jokes about fighting with her sisters, saying they're all dreaming of the day one of them moves out. He praises her home, saying it's lovely for a loving family. She thinks to herself that she never knew he had a sensitive side, seeing a lot of unexpected things today. She thanks him for taking her home and apologizes for probably making this the worst date he's ever been on. She tells him to forget about her crying at the restaurant, but he jokes that forgetting something that lasted over an hour would be quite hard, saying he's never seen a grown woman cry like that. She thinks to herself that she's so embarrassed, wondering why she cried for so long. She offers to return his handkerchief after washing it, and he heads home, reminding her they have work tomorrow. She tells him to go home, and they'll see each other tomorrow. He calls her back, reaffirming his commitment to their fake relationship, saying he always gives his all to everything he does, and this is no exception. He promises to be the perfect partner for her, just like she wants. She agrees, and he asks for a favor, to stay committed to their charade for at least 8 months to avoid unnecessary conflicts. She agrees, and he jokingly says that's a good excuse for when they eventually break up, citing his upcoming trip to Australia. He adds one more thing. As long as she's his girlfriend, she's not allowed to cry again. Dajung tells them to hold the elevator for her as she runs in. She thanks them. She thinks to herself that she wasn't late. She almost broke her record of never being late for work. She was always very early and so relaxed. Although that's what happened before the team leader came, she didn't know why he came so early every time. He's the one who is always the earliest for work since he joined the company. She reaches the 15th floor. She thinks to herself that she has to go to work. She says hello to everyone. One of them asks what happened. Is she really dating the leader? Dajung says yes. They both congratulate her. One of them asks how long they've been dating. Another one says her ability was great. How did she have a date? She should say something. They've been waiting for her since. She says it was the usual. It must have been nice. Miss Yoon says she wants to drink with the leader when it's just the two of them too. One of them reminds her that she's married. She replies that she has to prepare for her living right. Can't she hope to have a drink together? Chun-hee says so. Dajung drank with the leader. They must be a reason why she's late today, right? She replies that it's not like that. The female lead says she'll go back to her seat. She hasn't said anything to the leader. One of her coworkers mentions that the leader has gone to see the deputy director, and Dajung asks if that's true. She thinks to herself that if he were around, everyone wouldn't be making so much noise. Just then, he opens his door, greets her, and walks back in, closing the door behind him. Her colleagues tease her, saying he must not have seen them, and that he uses a different tone when greeting them. During break, Dajung's eating when one of her colleagues calls her over. She thinks to herself that she knew they'd come as expected. They start asking her questions about her supposed relationship with the leader, like where they go on dates and if he's really rich. Dajung tries to brush them off, saying she has a lot of work to do and excuses herself. Her colleagues ask her to stay, suggesting they grab a drink at a cafe later, but Dajung declines, thinking to herself that it's exhausting being in the spotlight. She walks over to the vending machine, presses the button, but nothing comes out. Hyunwoo walks up to her, teasing her that the machine won't work if she just tells it once, and offers to help. He gives her the soda, and as she turns to leave, he congratulates her on dating the leader. He jokes that he thought about having a secret relationship too, but was surprised she publicized it. She thinks to herself that Hyunwoo is treating her as usual, which she likes, but she's also aware of his relationship with Seah and wonders why he's pretending not to know anything. She's curious about Seah's intentions, especially after seeing her propose to manager Yoon so easily. He says when he saw Dajung confessing with the leader, he didn't expect that because she doesn't seem to care about others. He was shocked. She asks why he was shocked. He says that Dohoon walks in. Dohoon walks in and says there she is. She asks if he's been looking for her. He says yes, he has some urgent issues to discuss with her. She asks herself why does she feel like she was caught cheating. He says he's sorry to interrupt, but if it's not too important, he'll need her to come with him. Hyunwoo asks if it really matters if what he was saying was important or not. Also, he's curious about what these urgent issues are. She asks Dohoon which issues he's talking about. If he feels uncomfortable there, shall they go to his office? He tells her to follow him. She asks herself if she did something wrong. She asks him what he wants to talk about. He asks how her research on the Hong Kong resort is going. She says she's almost done. She just needs to work on the budget proposal. He asks when does he think the report will be ready. She says she'll turn it in by Monday morning. He says okay then. She thinks to herself that it was already discussed at the last meeting. Is that really all he had to ask? He asks what's with the can of Coke. He thought she didn't like soft drinks. She says she just needed something refreshing. He asks if she's feeling unwell, and she attributes her discomfort to eating too fast, saying she's all right now. He advises her to check if her condition worsens and expresses concern for her well-being. She thanks him, and he shares that he's going on a business trip to visit their factories in another city, returning tomorrow but tied up in meetings for the rest of the day. Dajung wonders why he's sharing his schedule with her. She wishes him a safe trip and success with his busy schedule, and he thanks her. As she prepares to leave, he tells her to go ahead. She thinks to herself that the conversation was awkward, wondering how he knew she didn't like soft drinks. He reflects on the need to keep calm, reminding himself that they have 8 months left to maintain their charade. Hyunwoo calls Seah, expressing his confusion about her story, which he finds inconsistent. Seah accuses him of trying to take advantage of the situation, and the conversation ends abruptly. Hyunwoo tries calling her again, saying he thought he knew her better, but now he's unsure what to believe. He says he used to think that he knew her better than anyone else, but he didn't have a clue. He doesn't know which part of her story to believe in anymore. She walks past him and goes to ask the colleagues if they enjoyed lunch. Hyunwoo asks himself what happened to the Seah he used to know. In the office, a lady asks Dajung what she plans to do after work, and Dajung replies that she doesn't have any meetings, so she'll head home. The female lead asks herself what's wrong, noting that she's never asked Dajung like this before. The lady asks Dajung if she won't be going out with the leader on Friday, and Dajung replies yes. The lady then invites Dajung to eat pasta and go shopping with her. Dajung thinks to herself that it's no surprise given the constant questions she's faced all day. She blames the leader for her situation, dreading the prospect of socializing with her coworkers and facing more questions. The female lead intervenes, citing an important business matter, and the lady leaves. Dajung thinks to herself that the leader hasn't come back yet and it's almost time to get off work. She wonders if he's tired from work, considering his mood yesterday. She starts typing a message but deletes it, reminding herself she's not his real girlfriend. Her phone vibrates and she receives a text from Seah asking to talk to her after work. Dajung asks herself why everyone wants to see her after work and replies that she doesn't have anything to say to Seah. She thinks to herself that she's sure Seah will make brazen-faced excuses, even though she doesn't feel any better. Her phone vibrates again, and she tells herself to ignore it. She focuses on finishing the report about the resort in Hong Kong, confirming its importance since the leader reviewed it twice. With everyone gone, Dajung prepares to head home. Dajung steps into the elevator and finds Hyunwoo inside. He asks if she's just getting off work, suggesting she should come in. She catches a whiff of tobacco and thinks to herself that he must have smoked on the rooftop, a habit she's familiar with from her 2 years of liking him. Noticing his less-than-stellar expression, she wonders if he argued with Seah, but tells herself not to get involved. Hyunwoo asks Dajung what she likes about Dohoon, his tone sounding sarcastic to her ears. She responds, saying the leader is excellent, and Hyunwoo comments that she seems to like good-looking people, adding that no one has ever called Dohoon ugly. He gestures for her to exit the elevator first, following closely behind. Dajung wonders what he's implying. As they step outside, she realizes it's raining and she forgot her umbrella, thinking she'll get soaked. Hyunwoo offers his umbrella and asks if she takes the bus, offering to walk her to the bus station. Dajung declines, saying the rain isn't heavy and she can just make a run for it. Hyunwoo takes her hand, telling her to go with him, worrying that she might catch a cold. Dajung thinks to herself that Hyunwoo is always friendly and considerate, but now his actions feel different. Just then, Dohoon appears, telling Hyunwoo to take his hands off Dajung. Dajung asks Dohoon what's going on, and he says he's there to pick her up. She mentions that everyone is watching, and Dohoon replies that he wants them to see. Dohoon says they should let them watch, opening the car door for Dajung. As she gets in, she sees Hyunwoo standing outside. Dohoon explains that he came to take her home because it started raining, not wanting to let his girlfriend walk in the bad weather. Dajung thinks to herself that she never knew he cared about what others thought of him. He asks if she was headed home, and she confirms. She thinks to herself that he seems to like classical music, noticing the type of music playing in the car. Dohoon invites her to dinner at the Japanese restaurant they discussed earlier. Dajung asks herself, "Dinner again?" She asks him if he means songhak, knowing it's pricey, and he says she knows she won't have to spend a penny, so she shouldn't worry. Dajung thinks to herself that even if she's not paying for it, receiving such an expensive meal is still burdensome. He says he's just always wanted to try it. He's been wanting to go for quite a while, but he couldn't go by himself, so he should please accompany him. She asks herself how she can say no to that face. But why her? Is it because he barely knows anyone in Korea, and who he goes with probably doesn't matter much to him? She finally says okay. At the restaurant, Dajung enjoys the food and atmosphere, thinking to herself that the place is awesome and the food is so tasty too. She looks at him and says he's barely touched his food. Didn't he say he wanted to come there? He says she shouldn't worry, he's enjoying himself. She says she thinks she's eating everything, and he asks if she likes it, to which she responds positively, now understanding why the restaurant is so expensive. She wonders if her comment sounded too snobbish. He offers to take her to try other dishes, and she asks if it's with him, to which he responds by asking if she doesn't enjoy his company. She thinks to herself that they're acting like lovers even outside the office. She thanks him for the meal, and he says he's glad she enjoyed it. The manager walks in, excited to see Dohoon outside the office, and comments on the restaurant's decent food. Dajung feels like she's become invisible, as the manager doesn't seem to notice her. The manager asks Dohoon if he has time this weekend. After his daughter found out he existed, She's been begging, a meal, coffee, a date with him. Dajung thinks to herself that Dohoon must feel so uncomfortable. The male lead says he's sort, but he's afraid he won't be able to go on that date with his daughter. The manager asks if it's because it's his daughter. She shouldn't be shy. The male lead says it's not because of him, but because of his girlfriend. The manager asks what. He repeats himself. The manager says that was quick, but then again, he knew girls would be lining up for him. It turns out that their manager hasn't heard the news yet. The manager asks who the lucky girl is. She must be much prettier and more talented than his daughter. Dohoon says she is pretty and talented. The manager says he's not sure who she is, but she just won the lottery, as far as he's concerned. Then he looks at Dajung and says he didn't see her there. She says she's been standing there all along. The manager apologizes and says he's a bit drunk now. Who did she come here with? She replies and says Mr. G. The manager asks if it's just both of them. She says yes. He says wait. She cuts him off and says she's the lottery winner he mentioned just now. Dohoon tells him to enjoy his evening and they leave. Dajung asks if he saw the manager's face. He asks how could anyone miss it. She wishes she had taken a photo of the manager's confused expression, finding it hilarious. Dohoon asks if it's really that funny, and she says yes, feeling a little sorry for the manager. She's still in shock about being Dohoon's girlfriend. He asks what's so shocking about that. She says, to be honest, they really don't go well together. Does he think even though her teammates haven't said anything, she knows deep inside they think that she doesn't deserve him? He asks if she knows why he asked her to play his girlfriend in the first place. She asks if it isn't because she confessed to him first. He says she's wrong. She asks him the reason. He says it's just that it had to be her. Dajung's mind goes blank as she's lost in thought, the sound of her heartbeat all she can hear. At a moment like this, she wouldn't mind being kissed, but her phone starts ringing, breaking the spell. It's Sojung, asking where she is and reminding her it's buy 2 get 1 free day at Hoshok's Fried Chicken. Dajung remembers and Sojung tells her they ordered 20 minutes ago and she should hurry back home. Dajung thinks to herself that she's had enough and considers moving out to get away from her family. She tells Dohoon she needs to leave, citing her family's request, and he asks if there's an emergency. She downplays the situation, and he teases her about the urgency of fried chicken. Dajung returns home to find her family waiting, and her sister Ajung scolds her for coming home late, warning her about the dangers of being kidnapped. Sojung defends Dajung, saying she's strong enough to fight off any attackers. Their grandmother, Jang Gil-soon, comments on Dajung's outfit, worrying she'll catch pneumonia. Dajung responds, saying she's not naked, and Park Bong-hae chimes in, agreeing she should dress warmly. Dajung declines the fried chicken, saying she already had dinner, and Sojung asks who she had sushi with. Dajung avoids answering, saying it was just a friend, and Sojung teases her about her attitude. Dajung heads to her room, recalling Dohoon's words and wondering what he meant by saying it had to be her. She questions why he chose her, considering they've only worked together for a year and there's nothing special between them. Her different personalities offer various interpretations, ranging from him taking advantage of her vulnerability to having a crush on her. Dajung tells herself to stop being crazy, acknowledging she's not exceptional in any way. She looks outside, noticing the rain. And after a week of dating Dohoon, a lady approaches her, asking if she went on a date with Mr. G yesterday. She now understands why people keep office romances a secret, as she's already tired of the gossip. A colleague asks how long she's been dating Dohoon, and she replies that it's been less than a month. The colleague teases her, saying they're in the puppy love stage, and Dajung plays along. Another colleague comments on Dohoon's changed behavior, saying he seems nicer, and even smiles more often. Dajung agrees, and the conversation turns to the power of love. One colleague asks a provocative question, inquiring about the level of intimacy between Dajung and Dohoon. Dajung is taken aback, spitting out her drink in surprise. A colleague hands her a napkin. The lady who asked the question apologizes for being too personal. Dajung asks herself what kind of question that was. The lady apologizes again, and another colleague chimes in, saying that young people these days don't count bases, and they're both adults who know what they want. Dajung confirms that they're not even holding hands. Miss Yoon shares her own insights, saying that a man of Dohoon's age wouldn't be shy and advises Dajung to enjoy it while it lasts. She jokingly says she's jealous, knowing Dohoon has a nice physique, mentioning she would know better than any of them. Dajung thinks to herself that she doesn't like the topic at all. The lady tells her to spill the beans, asking if she remembers the company track meet last year. She should have seen Dohoon run around with that tight shirt on. Another lady says that's why they're all looking forward to this year's track meet. The third lady says she wishes he didn't have to hide all the goodness under a suit all the time. Ms. Yoon says he's actually a good sportsman. He won every match that day. The other lady agrees, saying, "That's right." That was how the planning team won the tournament. Dajung thinks to herself that she was too busy watching Hyunwoo at the company track meet to notice Dohoon. The lady continues, saying Dohoon's physique and stamina are impressive, meaning he's not just well-built, but also has great endurance, implying he never gets tired. The group teases Dajung, asking her to spill the details about Dohoon, and Ms. Yoon asks what she's being shy about. Dajung thinks to herself, wondering if Dohoon might be the type to like being dominated, but quickly pushes the thought away. Just then, Dohoon walks in, and Dajung calls out to him. He asks if that's how she greets her boyfriend, and she asks when he arrived. He says he just got there and hands her a selection of cakes. The ladies at the table swoon, saying they're jealous of Dajung. Dohoon says that's not all he has for her. He wasn't sure of what she liked, so he ordered a little bit of everything. Hopefully she'll enjoy at least one of them. He asks if he can borrow her now, and the ladies jokingly tell him to take her as long as he wants. As they leave, Dajung asks how he knew she was at the cafe, and he asks what she means. He saw her through the window. She looked like she needed some help, so he stepped in. She thinks to herself that's great. Maybe he didn't hear what they were saying. He asks if he was wrong. She says no. She really wanted to run away. He says next time she wants to run away, she should just give him a call. She thinks to herself that he sure knows how to lift a girl off her feet. She says the cakes he bought, she noticed he only chose the most expensive ones. He asks if there's any issue. It's just cake. She says there are not just any cakes. Each slice is the same price as a hearty meal. He says he doesn't think she'd worry about his finances. She says what she means, that just 2 or 3 would have been enough. She wouldn't want any to go to waste. Dohoon teases Dajung, saying he thought women had a separate stomach for desserts. Responds, saying they do, but still, she can't help but think about his physique, imagining the body of a beast beneath his shirt. He asks her what she was discussing with her colleagues, noticing their excited expressions. She denies being excited, and he notices her blushing, guessing they were talking about intimate things. Dajung quickly defends herself, asking how anyone could discuss such things in public. Dohoon jokingly says he gets it. Wondering why she's being so defensive, he tells her to go in at the 15th floor. She asks about him. He says he needs to go see the manager first. She says, all right. He calls her back and says he's not sure why people would be curious about it, but if she must know, he's more of the dominant type. He's just saying. She thinks to herself that so he did hear everything. Dajung thinks to herself that he heard everything. What's he going to think of her? A woman who talks about stuff like that at a cafe in broad daylight also, so has dominant. She means he does look like the alpha male type, but he's so gentle to him. She tells herself to get her mind out of the gutter. 6 p.m. going home, she's too embarrassed to meet Mr. G. She'll just make a run for it as soon as she gets to the 1st floor. She'll mix with the crowd, but he sees her. Dohoon asks her where she's going. She knows his car is downstairs. One of her colleagues asks if she isn't leaving with him today. She says she's still used to getting off on this floor. She asks him if it isn't troublesome for him to drive her home every day. He says not at all. She says they don't have to prove their relationship to anyone he knows. They don't have to be together every time to be a couple. He says if they see her going home by herself now, the whole team will be throwing wild guesses at them tomorrow. Like he told her before, he's going to give everything he has to make the relationship perfect. So, driving home is not and never will be a hassle for him, so she shouldn't worry about it. She says okay. She says she has something to ask him. He asks what is it. She says actually she has a few questions. Does he have some time? He says not now. He's too hungry to think at the moment. She can't believe she's having dinner with him again. This place is also really expensive. She's definitely going Dutch with him this time. He says she should ask the questions. She says it's about what happened at the cafe today. He asks what she means. Is it the debate with the teammates? He tells her to relax and have a drink of water. She thinks to herself that he's doing it on purpose. He's so cheeky sometimes. Dajung apologizes to Dohoon for discussing intimate topics with her colleagues, ensuring him that they didn't mean any harm. Dohoon reassures her that he wasn't offended and was actually hoping she'd share more. Dajung wonders why he's smiling. She asks him what he overheard, and he mentions the question about which base they got to, joking that one of her colleagues had a loud voice. Dajung realizes he heard the entire conversation. She expresses her embarrassment, admitting that she barely knows anything about him. Dohoon offers to share more about himself, and Dajung takes notes, asking about his age, birth date, and blood type. When she discovers they share the same blood type as her ex-boyfriend, she gulps hard, recalling her ex's ego and bad temper. Dohoon notices her reaction and asks what she's trying to say, ensuring she didn't offend him. Dajung apologizes, and Dohoon lightheartedly says it's an unfair generalization to assume all Type B individuals are like her ex-boyfriend. He tells her to move on from her ex-boyfriend, and Dajung agrees. She asks herself if asking for his address should sound too formal. She asks him where he lives, and he says in Nonhyun-dong. She asks if he lives by himself with his parents or friends. He says his parents are in Australia. Dajung hesitates to ask about the size of his house, citing rumors about his wealth and her colleagues' curiosity. She explains that they all think she's been to his house already, but it's too personal. Dohoon offers a sly solution, saying it's better if she came and saw it for herself, asking if she's free that weekend. He invites her to come and see his house, and Dajung is taken aback by the invitation. If you're eager for the next chapter, drop a comment expressing your interest in a part 2. Don't forget to subscribe and ensure to hit the notification bell to stay updated. Until next time.